My name's Erin Mollenhauer, and I'm the team leader of Library and Archives at Moore Theological College. And I'm delighted to be here this morning to talk about some very nice prayer books from our collection. So Moore Theological College is just down the road in Newtown. It's the Theological College of the Anglican Diocese of Sydney and an Australian university college. Its library of around 330,000 volumes includes a significant rare books collection. And one of the sub-collections within that is a collection of books of common prayer from 1549. So the Book of Common Prayer is the liturgical resource used by Anglicans for corporate worship since 1549. It has numerous editions and local variants, including a prayer book for Australia from 1978. It's something of a scrapbook being compiled by Archbishop of Canterbury, Thomas Cranmer, and his committee from various sources, including the Catholic prayer book Sarum Missal, Lutheran prayers and prayers of the early church. It went through several printings, as well as being banned during the Commonwealth period before the authorised and best known version of 1662. It's known as an influence on the English language and literature alongside the Bible and Shakespeare. So our Croft collection, as it's known, was collected by a clergyman in Sydney, Canon Warren Croft. He was the minister of St Paul's Kogarah. And his aim was to collect at least one prayer book from the reign of every English monarch, as identified in the prayers for the royal family in the service for morning prayer. This collection was acquired by the library some years ago, and it came with a booklet outlining all the different items, and that is available on our institutional repository, arc.moore.edu.au. So three main themes emerge from this collection. Firstly, they demonstrate the evolution of printing and illustrative techniques over time. Secondly, the design elements reflect the status of the Church of England as the established church and the connection between church and state. And thirdly, the illustrative choices reflect both a particular brand of Anglican churchmanship and ideals of personal morality. So firstly, printing technologies. Because it's such a prominent title in religious life, the best available printing technologies were used in its production. The fact that the same text was printed over so many centuries makes it a good example for looking at printing and illustrative techniques. It was used in private devotions as well as public worship, but it's a written text designed for verbal delivery, that is, being read out loud. It provides the script to major life events, baptisms, marriages, recovery from childbirth, burials on land and at sea, and ordinations of clergy, all of which required a specific form of words. The title page of the 1549 prayer book includes the British lion and unicorn at the top of its woodcut border, and the initials of the printer, Edward Whitchurch, at the bottom. Printed during the short reign of the Protestant King Edward, the 1549 prayer book is considered to be a transitional form of liturgy from the Catholic Sarum rite towards later Protestant prayer books. This one was primarily used as a lectern or presentation copy rather than for personal use. And the architectural border surrounding the title page is derived from Renaissance designs found in frescoes and other decorative arts and buildings of the period. There were several different editions of the prayer book printed between 1549 and 1662. This edition was published soon after the restoration of the monarchy and remained as the standard form of the text in a similar way to the King James Bible. Its engraved copperplate title page features Grecian columns engraved by David Logan. On almost every page, there is a more lavish and eclectic variety of woodcuts, most of which are purely decorative, with floral flourishes as opposed to illustrative historiated initials. Woodcut initials with occasional biblical illustrations on plates remained the standard until decorations dropped out of favour during the late 18th century classical period. Then at the start of the Industrial Revolution, which mechanised printing, illustrations burst into mass-produced colour. So it's not changing the slide. Oh, there we go. Thank you. The advent of chromolithography allowed for bright and lavishly coloured illustrations. This is a well-known edition from 1845, designed by architect and designer Owen Jones, featuring floral borders and patterns based on Celtic motifs and initial letters adapted from medieval manuscripts. It's almost every page features a different design, and it's possibly the most lavish prayer book I think I've ever seen, apart from illuminated books of hours. This 1903 edition deliberately harks back, aesthetically speaking, to the early modern era, while being distinctively Art Nouveau. It has woodcut initials and the rubric, which are instructions for what to do during the service, printed in red. And I was very interested to read Maggie's article in Open Book, which talks about this sort of design. So, establishment. 1552 and 1631 editions both feature the royal crest on the front cover. This plain octavo edition from 1660 was printed in the same year as the restoration of the monarchy. Its title page has a woodcut border, which is a little bit haphazard. But if we look closely at the design, you can see Tudor rose, Scotch thistle, and fleur-de-lis. It appears to have been typeset, possibly in a bit of a hurry, but the title page design emphasises the fact that the monarchy was back. Back to 1662. This edition included woodcut headpieces, which feature, again, the symbols of Tudor rose, Scotch thistle, fleur-de-lis, and harp. On the contents page, and perhaps most significantly above the Act of Uniformity, the Act of Parliament prescribing the form of public prayers, the administration of the sacraments, and other rites of the Church of England as per the prayer book. Services for the commemoration for the death of King Charles I were included in printings between 1662 and 1859. In his book, Guide to the Book of Common Prayer, Charles Helfling says, "The services for these solemn days can be dismissed as political propaganda, but it does not follow that the state services were deliberately disingenuous. The prayer book had always been a political text and a theology of divine providence that conceives God as deeply interested and directly involved in worldly politics." The verse chosen to be printed underneath the scene of the execution of King Charles I comes from Psalm 31, "Into thine hands I commit my spirit." This is the same phrase spoken by Christ on the cross. It's not very subtle, is it? Liturgy plays a central role in the coronation of a monarch, and special editions of the prayer book were published to mark the occasion. King Edward VII and King George V have coronation prayer books in this collection, and I will expect a new edition for King Charles III. And you can see the Tudor rose again in the border of the 1903 edition. The third theme is spirituality. As with church architecture investments, the design of prayer books was chosen to reflect both churchmanship and ideals of personal morality, with aesthetic choices linked to certain beliefs. Notably, Anglo-Catholicism, which grew out of the Oxford movement of the 1830s and 40s, which aimed for a retrieval of the Church of England's medieval pre-Reformation roots. It introduced Catholic elements into worship services with an emphasis on the sacrament of communion. And that's a book it's in the Croft collection, although not a prayer book, Eucharistica, Meditations and Prayers on the Most Holy Eucharist. Anglo-Catholics believe that aesthetics and symbolism were important elements of worship. And the Cambridge Camden Society, founded by clergyman John Mason Neale, supported the growing Gothic revival movement and encouraged a reverence for medieval religious styles, which can be seen in the lavishly decorated borders of the title page and the first page there. Victorian medievalism. So prayer books printed in the Victorian era with chromolithographed borders, imitating medieval illumination, demonstrate the confluence of a theological movement and an aesthetic movement. In his book, High Church Revival in the Church of England, Morris says, prayer book Catholicism, as it came to be called, affirmed the Book of Common Prayer, even as it sought to situate it in a ritual, sacramental, and devotional culture that owed much to a pseudo-Gothic fantasy about the medieval past. So coming back to our 1845 prayer book, this was, as I mentioned, designed by the architect and design theorist Owen Jones. It's a prominent example of Victorian aesthetics. Jones was inspired by Islamic art and architecture from his visits to Cairo and the Alhambra. And he's best known for his work, A Grammar of Ornament. And you can see that if you're down in Melbourne at the State Library of Victoria. They've got it on display in their excellent World of the Book exhibition. In 1844, he published the illuminated books of the Middle Ages and also illuminated Bibles and gift books. His main motive was possibly a commercial one, tapping into a market, but also tapping into the rich aesthetic spirituality of Victorian Anglican Catholicism, while also presenting an aesthetic style that was a product of the 19th century and distinct from the historically inspired Gothic revival. Victorian sentiment and personal morality can also be seen in this edition from 1852. It's full of engraved illustrations based on paintings, which are strategically placed next to appropriate life events. For example, the meeting of Jacob and Rachel from Genesis chapter 29 is placed next to the marriage service, and the resurrection of Lazarus in John chapter 11 placed next to the burial service. So we are open to the public. If anyone would like to come down and see our prayer books or any other books from our rare collection, you are always welcome. Thank you very much.